Nobody cares about your excuses. Nobody cares about your struggles. Nobody cares about how hard it feels, how unfair it seems, or how many obstacles you've had to face. And I don't say that to be cruel. I say it because facing that truth is the first step toward genuine strength. Think about it. The world isn't going to pause just because you're tired. Life doesn't stop for you to catch your breath. Society isn't built around making sure every single one of your challenges is understood and validated. The world moves on, time moves on. Whether you show up or you don't, the clock keeps ticking, and that reality, although harsh, can be the most liberating thing you'll ever realize. Because if the world doesn't care about your excuses, then the weight of responsibility is entirely yours, and so too is the power. Here's what many people don't see. The world rewards results, not explanations. If you don't show up prepared, if you don't deliver, nobody is going to hand you success because you had a rough week. You don't get the promotion because you meant well. You don't graduate just because you tried. The standard of excellence doesn't bend because you're struggling. And that's precisely why those who rise above their excuses, who work despite being tired, who grind even when no one notices, that's why they're the ones who separate themselves from the crowd. Discipline is the great equalizer. Talent matters, opportunity matters, but nothing carries you further than the relentless discipline to keep going when every fiber of your body says stop. And here's the paradox. People spend so much energy wishing others would understand their pain, hoping that sympathy could make their struggle easier. But sympathy doesn't build. Sympathy doesn't create. Sympathy doesn't transform your life. Sympathy feels good for a moment, but it doesn't pay your bills, it doesn't make your body stronger, it doesn't sharpen your mind. What builds you is effort. What transforms you is consistency. What sets you apart is the willingness to carry on when nobody is clapping, when nobody is praising, when nobody even sees. You must understand the psychological trap here. If you fall into the mindset of people don't care about me, therefore I can't do it, you've already surrendered your power. You've made your growth dependent on someone else's validation, and that's the fastest way to mediocrity. But if you flip it, if you say, people don't care, so I don't need their approval, I will take responsibility for my own path, suddenly the burden shifts into freedom. You stop asking for permission. You stop waiting to be noticed. You stop trying to prove your worth through the eyes of others. You own your grind, and because of that, every step forward belongs entirely to you. Consider for a moment how the most successful people in history got there. Very rarely were they the ones who had everything handed to them. Many came from obscurity, from hardship, from being overlooked. But they didn't let that invisibility stop them. They used it. They embraced the fact that nobody cared, because when nobody cares, you have room to grow without constant judgment. When nobody cares, you're free to fail in private, to learn, to adjust, to build yourself brick by brick. When nobody is watching, the work you do becomes the foundation that one day forces the world to take notice. Think about athletes. The world sees the championship, the highlight reel, the trophy ceremony. But nobody cares about the endless mornings in the gym before sunrise, the hours of sweat when no camera is on, the days when their body screamed for rest and they pushed anyway. Nobody applauds in that moment. Nobody claps for effort behind closed doors. But without that invisible grind, there is no visible victory. The applause is an after effect, not the motivator. If they had waited for recognition before putting in the work, they never would have achieved anything. And that applies not only to athletes, but to students, entrepreneurs, artists, parents, anyone trying to build something worth having. Here's the deeper truth. Your grind is your responsibility, and that's both terrifying and empowering. It means no one is coming to save you. No one is going to drag you out of bed. No one is going to sit beside you every time you need to work. No one is going to carry your dreams for you. It also means you don't need anyone else's permission. You don't need the perfect conditions. You don't need universal support. What you need is to take ownership, complete ownership of your path. That's what separates those who talk from those who do. Ownership. When you take ownership, excuses lose their power. Because when you own your life, when you accept that everything you achieve or fail to achieve rests on your shoulders, there's no room left for blame. You stop pointing at others. You stop pointing at circumstances. You stop pointing at bad luck. You recognize that your responsibility is not to complain about the obstacles, but to find a way through them. And the human spirit is far more capable than most people realize when forced into responsibility. Responsibility is the force that transforms potential into reality. Without it, your potential is wasted, trapped in endless cycles of what if. With it, your potential becomes kinetic. It becomes motion. It becomes progress. And progress is addictive. Once you start seeing even the smallest signs of growth, even if nobody else notices, you begin to realize how powerful you truly are when you stop waiting for someone else to push you. But responsibility is heavy, and that's why so many run from it. They would rather lean on excuses. They would rather wait for help. They would rather hope that someone else steps in. But here's the secret. The weight of responsibility is the very thing that makes you strong. It's like lifting weights in a gym. At first it feels crushing. Your muscles shake. You want to quit. But the more you lift, the stronger you become, and what once felt impossible becomes easy. Life works the same way. Every challenge you face is a weight. Every responsibility you accept is a weight. And if you carry it consistently, you grow, you evolve. You harden into someone capable of bearing far more than you once thought possible. And that's why the phrase "nobody cares, keep working hard" is not an insult but a prescription. It's the cure to helplessness. It's the antidote to victimhood. Because when you accept that nobody cares, you stop expecting life to be easier. You stop hoping for shortcuts. Instead, you lean into the discipline of showing up day after day, whether anyone notices or not. And over time, that quiet, relentless consistency compounds into results so undeniable that the world eventually has no choice but to care. Now let's go even deeper. Ask yourself, why do we crave recognition so badly in the first place? Because recognition affirms that our effort is meaningful. It reassures us that we're on the right track. But the trap is this. If you need recognition to keep going, you will collapse the moment it's taken away. Your effort becomes fragile. Your motivation becomes conditional. That's why discipline is more powerful than motivation. Discipline doesn't care whether you're seen, whether you're praised, whether you're rewarded. Discipline only cares that the work gets done. And in the long run, discipline will take you places motivation never could. This is where most people falter. They confuse being busy with being disciplined. Busyness is chaotic, scattered, reactive. Discipline is intentional, structured, focused. Busyness makes you feel like you're working, but discipline ensures that work builds towards something meaningful. And if your grind is truly your responsibility, then you must discipline yourself to ensure that the hours you put in are not wasted. That's the educational side of this message. You cannot simply work hard. You must also work smart. You must learn, you must adapt, you must constantly refine your process, because raw effort without direction is just exhaustion, but effort with discipline becomes transformation. And remember, when nobody cares, you have two choices. You can collapse under the weight of indifference, or you can use it as fuel, because there's a strange freedom in realizing that most people aren't watching you as closely as you think. We live in an age where it feels like every move is under scrutiny, but the truth is, people are wrapped up in their own lives. They aren't tracking your every step, which means you have the freedom to experiment, to fail, to rebuild without constant judgment. That's an advantage. That's the arena where growth happens. Use it. When you stop waiting for the world to notice, you gain the ability to focus entirely on your own standard. And that's where greatness is forged. Not in comparison, not in applause, but in the daily decision to outdo your own yesterday. That's what it means to truly own your grind. That's what it means to accept responsibility. To say, no matter how hard it is, no matter how unfair it seems, no matter how invisible my effort may be to the world, I will keep going. I will carry the weight. I will hold the line, because this is my responsibility and I refuse to give it up